The Second World War. A world consumed. This was a conflict that would engulf nations, devastate continents, and alter the course of history forever. It was a war that saw unprecedented levels of destruction and human suffering. A war that would leave an indelible mark on the world. Written by Dan Carlin from Hardcore History, this narrative delves deep into the events and personalities that shaped this monumental conflict. Carlin's meticulous research and gripping storytelling bring to life the harrowing experiences of those who lived through these tumultuous times. The year is 1939. Europe stands on the brink of catastrophe. The political tensions that have been simmering for years are about to boil over into a full-scale war. The world watches with bated breath as the continent teeters on the edge of chaos. The world watches as Europe erupts into chaos. Cities that were once bustling with life are now scenes of panic and confusion. Families are torn apart, and the future seems uncertain. The spectre of war looms large over the continent. Nazi Germany, led by the ambitious and ruthless Adolf Hitler, unleashes its military might. Hitler's vision of a dominant Aryan race and a vast German empire drives his aggressive expansionist policies. The Nazi war machine, with its advanced technology and disciplined troops, seems unstoppable. Poland falls, its defences overwhelmed by the German blitzkrieg. The speed and ferocity of the German attack leave the Polish forces reeling. Cities are bombed into submission, and the Polish people face the harsh realities of occupation. Great Britain and France declare war, but it is too late to stop the Nazi war machine. Despite their declarations, the Allies are unprepared for the sheer scale and intensity of the German onslaught. The early days of the war are marked by a series of devastating defeats for the Allied forces. The world is plunged into a global conflict, the likes of which have never been seen before. Battles rage across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. Nations from every corner of the globe are drawn into the fray, and the war's impact is felt far and wide. World War II, a war that will claim the lives of tens of millions and reshape the geopolitical landscape, has begun. The human cost is staggering, with countless lives lost and entire cities reduced to rubble. The war leaves a legacy of destruction and sorrow that will be felt for generations. But amidst the early German victories, a dark cloud gathers in the east, the Soviet Union. The vast expanse of the Soviet territory and its immense resources pose a significant challenge to Hitler's ambitions. The stage is set for a colossal clash between two of the most powerful military forces in history. The Nazi-Soviet Pact of 1939 had divided Eastern Europe between the two totalitarian powers, but the uneasy alliance was not destined to last. The pact, born out of mutual convenience, is fraught with suspicion and mistrust. Both sides know that a confrontation is inevitable. Hitler, driven by his ideology and a desire for Lebensraum, living space in the East, sets his sights on the Soviet Union. The concept of Lebensraum is central to Nazi ideology, and Hitler believes that the conquest of the East is essential for the survival and expansion of the German people. The stage is set for one of the most brutal and consequential chapters in human history, the German-Soviet War. This conflict will see some of the largest and bloodiest battles ever fought, with millions of soldiers and civilians caught in the crossfire. The outcome of this war will determine the fate of Europe and the world. A pact betrayed. Operation Barbarossa. The world watched in disbelief as two former adversaries, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, signed the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact in August 1939. This agreement, which promised peace between the two nations, was a strategic move by both leaders, Hitler and Stalin, to buy time and prepare for future conflicts. However, this fragile peace was not destined to last. On June 22, 1941, the relative peace of a Sunday morning is shattered. The tranquility of dawn is replaced by the thunderous roar of artillery and the relentless march of German troops. This day marks the beginning of one of the largest and deadliest military operations in history. Across a vast front, from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, the German war machine roars to life. Tanks roll forward, crushing everything in their path, while the skies are filled with the ominous hum of Luftwaffe planes. The scale and coordination of the attack are unprecedented, showcasing the might of the German military. Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, has begun. This operation, named after the medieval Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, is Hitler's ambitious plan to conquer the Soviet Union and secure Lebensraum, or living space, for the German people. Over 3 million German soldiers, supported by their Axis allies, surge across the border. This massive force includes infantry, tanks and aircraft, all working in unison to overwhelm the Soviet defenses. The sheer number of troops and the speed of their advance catch the Soviet Union off guard. They are met with fierce but ultimately disorganized resistance from the Soviet Red Army. Despite their bravery, the Soviet soldiers are ill-prepared for the ferocity and scale of the German assault. Their defensive positions are quickly overrun and chaos ensues. The initial German advance is swift and brutal. Towns and villages fall one after another, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. The German panzers, or tanks, spearhead the assault, crushing Soviet defenses and leaving the Red Army scrambling to regroup. Soviet forces, caught off guard and unprepared for the sheer scale of the assault, are pushed back on all fronts. The rapid advance of the German troops leaves the Soviet command struggling to mount an effective counterattack. The Red Army is forced into a desperate retreat, abandoning equipment and positions. The vastness of the Soviet Union, which Hitler and his generals had underestimated, becomes both a blessing and a curse. While the expansive terrain offers the Germans room to maneuver, it also stretches their supply lines thin and exposes them to the harsh realities of the Soviet climate and geography. The sheer distances help to slow the German advance, but the Red Army is in a state of disarray. The logistical challenges of maintaining such a vast front become apparent, and the initial momentum of the German forces begins to wane. Meanwhile, the Soviet troops, though disorganized, start to regroup and prepare for a prolonged struggle. Millions of Soviet soldiers are killed or captured in the opening months of the war. The human cost of Operation Barbarossa is staggering, with entire divisions of the Red Army decimated. The brutality of the conflict is evident in the mass graves and the countless prisoners of war taken by the Germans. The road to Moscow, the Soviet capital, seems to lay open. With the initial successes of the invasion, the German High Command believes that victory is within reach. However, the resilience of the Soviet people and the harsh Russian winter will soon turn the tide of the war, leading to one of the most grueling and pivotal battles in history. The Eastern Front, a different kind of war. The fighting on the Eastern Front was unlike anything seen in the West. This was a war of annihilation, a clash of ideologies, and a struggle for survival. The vast steppes of Russia and Ukraine became a battleground of unprecedented savagery. For the Germans, the war in the East quickly descended into a brutal struggle for survival. The vast distances, harsh climate, and fierce resistance of the Soviet people took a heavy toll on the invaders. The initial expectation of a swift victory evaporated as the Red Army, bolstered by reserves and fueled by a fervent patriotism, dug in for a long and bloody conflict. The scorched-earth policy adopted by the retreating Soviets denied the Germans vital resources. As the invaders advanced, they found villages razed to the ground, crops burned, and infrastructure destroyed. The harsh Russian winter, which had defeated Napoleon's armies a century earlier, would soon become the Germans' most formidable enemy. Section 4. The Siege of Leningrad, a city under siege. In the north, the city of Leningrad, once the Russian imperial capital of St. Petersburg, found itself encircled by German and Finnish forces. The city, with its rich history and cultural significance, was now a focal point in the brutal conflict of World War II. The German High Command aimed to crush the Soviet Union by capturing this vital city, cutting off its supplies and breaking the spirit of its people. The Siege of Leningrad, which lasted for an agonizing 872 days, was one of the longest and most destructive sieges in human history. The relentless bombardment and blockade led to widespread devastation, reducing much of the city to rubble. The timeline of the siege is marked by extreme hardship, with each day bringing new challenges and suffering for the inhabitants. Trapped within the city limits, the civilian population faced unimaginable horrors. Families huddled together in bomb shelters, trying to find solace amidst the constant shelling. The daily struggle for survival became a grim reality as the city's infrastructure crumbled under the relentless attacks. Food and fuel ran desperately low as the bitter winter set in. The harsh Russian winter compounded the misery, with temperatures plummeting and supplies dwindling. Long lines formed at the few remaining food stores where desperate citizens queued for meager rations. The scarcity of resources led to widespread malnutrition and disease, further exacerbating the dire situation. People starved to death in their homes, their bodies often left unburied in the frozen streets. The sight of lifeless bodies became a haunting reminder of the siege's toll. The city's morgues were overwhelmed, and the frozen ground made burials nearly impossible. The once vibrant streets of Leningrad were now scenes of desolation and despair. Yet despite the suffering and deprivation, the spirit of Leningrad refused to be broken. The citizens displayed remarkable resilience, finding ways to maintain a semblance of daily life. Community efforts were organized to support one another, with neighbors helping neighbors in acts of solidarity and compassion. The human spirit's capacity to endure and adapt shone through even in the darkest times. Factories continued to operate under constant bombardment, producing weapons and ammunition for the defenders. The industrial workforce, despite facing immense challenges, remained dedicated to the war effort. Their determination ensured that the city's defenders were supplied with the necessary tools to resist the enemy forces. The factories became symbols of defiance, their operations a testament to the unyielding spirit of Leningrad. Musicians played concerts in defiance of the shelling, their music a beacon of hope amidst the despair. Cultural life persisted, with artists and performers using their talents to uplift the spirits of their fellow citizens. These acts of cultural resistance provided a sense of normalcy and hope, reminding the people of Leningrad of their rich heritage and the enduring power of art. The resilience of Leningrad's citizens became a symbol of Soviet resistance, a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure even the most unimaginable hardships. The story of Leningrad's endurance is one of courage, solidarity, and unwavering determination. It serves as a powerful reminder of the strength and resilience that can emerge in the face of overwhelming adversity. The legacy of the siege continues to inspire, a poignant chapter in the history of human perseverance. Section 5. The Battle of Stalingrad, a turning point in the East. In the south, the battle for the industrial city of Stalingrad, now Volgograd, became a turning point in the war. The battle, which raged for over 6 months, was a brutal struggle for every street, every building, every inch of rubble. German forces, determined to capture the city that bore the name of their nemesis, Stalin, poured men and resources into the fight. The Soviets, equally determined to hold the city, fought with a ferocity born of desperation and a burning desire for revenge. The battle descended into a brutal hand-to-hand struggle with heavy casualties on both sides. In the ruins of the city, a new kind of warfare emerged. Snipers operating from bombed-out buildings terrorized both sides. Tanks dueled in the streets, their hulking forms reduced to burning wreckage. The Volga River, which flowed through the city, ran red with blood.